Hi, my name is Tom Coolidge, and I am Esri's Pipeline Industry Manager. I am facilitating today's webinar along with three of my colleagues active in our serving the solution needs of the pipeline industry, Jeff Allen, Colin Miller, and Scott Newlis. Jeff is Esri's Global Pipeline Practice Lead, Colin is an account executive, and Scott is a solution engineer. On behalf of us all and our colleagues, welcome to our focus on location intelligence improving field operations performance. I think you'll find our time together today to be interesting, informative, and helpful. Before we get started, please take a moment to note the webinar control panel on your screen. I would like to encourage you to post your questions as they occur to you during the presentation in the GoToWebinar Questions dialog box. We will answer as many general questions that can be answered concisely as time permits after the webinar. Questions requiring longer answers and some technical questions that are better answered by one of our specialist colleagues will be handled individually after today's webinar. And if we can't answer all general questions during the remaining time today, we'll answer them in a FAQ document, which we'll distribute afterwards to all attendees. Please also note you can switch between telephone and computer speaker audio and adjust your view to full or partial screen. And again, please note today's webinar is being recorded. Now, please welcome my colleague, Colin Miller. Colin?
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today to talk a little bit about field operations and the alignment of asset, people, and process through technology. And so in doing that and choosing the title for this webinar, it is a technology-oriented discussion, but it's also very much a business goals and objectives and strategy discussion as well. And I think it really highlights the direction that Esri is moving in as we continue to support our clients in this space in realizing goals and objectives when it comes to operations. So at Esri, our solutions really are engineered and focused around those areas that support increasingly complex operations environments, and a lot of that is predicated around the operational intelligence with the data, location strategy, and in aligning planning and execution based around what is out there and what's available and what we're able to do based on our operating areas, as well as situational awareness, being able to tap into the multitude of data arrays and data sensors and real-time information now that we're able to link into and to utilize. And so as such, Esri's technology is a little bit broader than GIS. We take into account spatial analytics, obviously the mapping and visualization, but there's also the remote sensing, data collection, and management as well. So it's really taking, and arguably as data becomes more of a commodity, being able to focus and sharpen the ability of data and information and those visualization and real-time views to really impact planning and execution. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that conceptually, and then switching gears and showing what that looks like when these technology solutions are actually deployed out in the field. So our framework then in really looking at tangible business outcomes, so starting with those, is really grounded in understanding what the operating area looks like with each and every one of our clients. And so that's not just being able to visualize it then, but then having an appreciation for what our operational limits look like, where it is that we're operating, scale for mileage, right-of-ways, framework terms, and conditions. So if we have that understood and we have that foundation, then organizations can begin to go through and think about then intelligent or rationalized business design geared toward what our operating areas allow us to do and what we're able to achieve. Business design leading to programs, program planning, program execution for pipeline programs, and then beginning to leverage individual initiatives within those programs. So when you think about a broad program, each program is made up of a number of different individual initiatives. Each of those are tied back to numbers of different metrics that demonstrate success, and they have a design that's predicated, again, on what our operating areas give us, so that finally we get to the point then that if that is engineered with that foundational element in place, moving through business design to the program to the initiatives, then we really can begin to capture value and think about those metrics then that demonstrate success, not only for internal stakeholders, but also for external shareholders as well, the investment community, and folks that really do spend time looking at organizations as well. So we're thinking about business design, and it's very much a business design discussion anchored in the technology solutions that we're able to provide that view of the operating area. So then when we take it down then and looking at the operating area and thinking about what field organizations really do face in planning and executing, it's a number of different challenges that these organizations are looking at. It's accurate and up-to-date maps of pipelines, facilities, roads, right-of-ways, being able to see what that looks like. Optimized routes or routes by exception to make sure work is being done in a cost-effective manner and it's deployed where it's needed. The EHS piece, and you know, very, very important around monitoring, reporting, responsiveness, compliance, enabling our field-based workers through mobility solutions, even when wireless worker networks are unavailable, but being able to get that linkage between field to field office and even back to home office. Real-time views of the assets to enable planning and responsiveness, and then building on that, also being able to share, plan, and collaborate with other functions across multiple locations. So again, that model, field office, home office, and then thinking about the different disciplines, including engineering, that many times are at the home office as well. And then finally, managing the field-based workforce, including vendors and contractors. So a variety of different issues and an increasingly complex needs that organizations have, or it could be very tightly focused around one or a couple of different issues. But nonetheless, if the right type of technology is deployed in order to help organizations really process is anchored in the asset, then what we get to is being able to demonstrate success and having plans and goals and processes really geared toward realizing our key business drivers. And at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. It's really being able to achieve our cycle times, cost reductions, keeping flow rates moving, waste reduction, return on investment, metrics and drivers that are business priorities that are really going to drive and inform the types of technology that's going to be deployed out in the field. So with field operations and technology, we're at an interesting point where the technology is mature enough now that field operations organizations can really move from an early inefficient model, arguably, of executing work that's predicated on paper-based models, more drive time, being a little bit unsure about exactly what's taking place in the asset, lapses of communication, to availing ourselves of, again, mature technology solutions. So everything from sensors to maps to analytics to different types of digital applications that can be deployed out in the field to move a field operations organization to the point that we're changing the way work is being executed. So again, I mentioned routing by exception, intelligence, analytics, metrics, reporting, digitally enabled contractor management, so that ultimately in taking that journey then, we're moving to a much more efficient and optimized model of execution, again enabled by mature and strategically selected technology solutions that impact those bottom line metrics that you saw on the previous slide. So being able to demonstrate success both internally and externally as well. The question then, when we think through what that technology framework is and what it's going to look like, is really how to begin to enable people and processes then in order to focus on those key business objectives. And when we don't have a real-time view of the asset, it increasingly becomes difficult to really understand and optimize workflows and activities out in the field. And these two examples that I'm putting up on the screen now are examples, one from West Texas and one from East Texas, both in operations organizations, using an analytic tool called a DILO, a day in the life of, that goes through and breaks down the day-to-day activities of field-based crews. And in both of these examples, the operations organizations that were characterized by, again, paper models, lack of clear communication, disparate data systems, so that when we really broke it down and looked at what really was happening, it was around 30% of the day was actually spent on field-based work, with a significant amount of time for reporting and admin, and large amounts of idle time. So letting waste creep into the system, driving costs up, and not covering the issues out in the field that need to be handled. So again, routing by optimized routing, and routing by exception. If we're deploying technology or choosing technology solutions that really can link into multitudes of data sensors, data arrays that are out in the field, we can really harness the leverage of this information on a real-time basis in order to support better decision making and improve execution. And this point is critically important because of what investors and analysts really are looking at these days with organizations, and expecting companies to stay within cash flow regardless of commodity prices, not just the price of oil, but commodity prices in general. So staying within your bounds on a cash flow basis. And again, when that's not just an external thing, but it's internally as well, as stakeholders make decisions, CapEx decisions and OpEx decisions, and where to bucket and funnel cash depending on how cash is being utilized, money's being utilized for the planning and execution of work. And then to compound issues as well, it's still a volatile industry. And when commodity prices can go up and down based on what's happening in the news, or based on news coming in or headlines, it compounds the issue as well. So underscoring the need to really take advantage of mature technology solutions then to impact operations and operational planning and execution. So for Esri then, and looking at that and blending the priorities, of bringing together the priorities, the physical asset requirements, and then also technology to align around business goals and objectives, Esri always starts with the inputs in mind, thinking about the business goals, the asset locations, right-of-way, barriers to risk, integrity management, and other priorities for pipeline organizations. Starting with that as a basis then to align the technology coming in, and what exactly is going to be configured and deployed in order to support the planning and the execution objectives that organizations have. And so this brings us then, if we're moving along this, then bucketing it essentially into 4 areas that Esri focuses on with our operations clients. The first is a visualization component. And so this gets back into the foundational piece in understanding our operating area. So being able to understand what the asset-wide common operating picture looks like, being able to visualize it, and really being able to see where pipe is located, what's our right-of-way situation, where are our facilities, the assets, public and private roads, being able to really visualize all of that so that we can see what's taking place. Building on that too is being able to monitor then the activity out in the field, so we can visualize it, then we can also monitor. And this isn't just the people component of it as well, but it's also our facilities, our pipe, and being able to take a look and see and monitor flow rates, pressure, and other operation-centric metrics, as well as seeing where folks are for drive times, and then also for inspection sites or inspection visits, looking at the weather. So monitoring activity out in the field, so visualizing it, being able to monitor what's taking place out in the field, and then one step to coordinating out in the field as well. So if you can visualize it and you can monitor it, then you can begin to coordinate it. And this is optimizing activity in order to really hit those goals and objectives. And then also sharing and collaborating across the organization, completing work orders that are funneled directly to our internal systems, enabling mobility devices, but for coordinating activity against what we're trying to accomplish from a goal standpoint, and enabling your field-based work crew and getting them where work needs to be done based on visualizing the asset, understanding where things are, and then monitoring that activity on a real-time basis. If we do all 3 of those, then we can really think about operationalizing our asset, operationalizing the operating area. And so this is hitting on the metrics. It's centralized planning and scheduling, it's EHS alignment, but it's also really demonstrating success, those hard targets, the cost reductions, the reduced downtime, the waste reduction, those things that are going to really justify the technology investment and being able to demonstrate success. And in some respects, arguably, this is really the starting point for whatever technology solution that we're going to put in place, and the focal point around which Esri organizes its work with the clients in being able to achieve these kinds of things. There are a number of different areas that we could tackle in working with clients out in the field. And an important point too, that it isn't necessarily a linear sequential process to move through, but it is all connected. And it depends on really where the client priorities are. And again, I mentioned this before, it could be very tightly focused around one single area or a logistics area, or it could be broader and designed to scale by starting simply and moving to more complex solutions as we demonstrate success, but tackling a number of areas so that we put different types of applications to tackle a number of these at the same time and really optimize our operating model. So it's a customizable approach, but one that's really designed to support the planning and the execution that pipeline organizations really focus on to do well work. So now that's kind of the conceptual backbone of Esri's approach to field operations. And now what I want to do is switch gears and send it over to colleague Scott Newless, who is going to walk through a handful of actual practical demonstrations of our technology solutions in practice. So Scott, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thank you, Colin. The ArcGIS platform offers a variety of tools and capabilities around each of those 4 areas that Colin just highlighted. So starting with visualization, we can take advantage of many of the out-of-the-box and configurable applications delivered through the platform to digitally display information on a map. And one example of that is an overview web app that I've got here that delivers an authoritative, up-to-date view of our assets and of our operating area. And so I can start to interrogate the map here as I zoom in, zoom out, click on features, see new layers update based on the extent that I'm at. And what this really results in is increased access of this valuable information throughout the organization. So it's easy for everyone in the organization to find assets, search for them, discover them, and use this information in their day-to-day workflows. So if I'm looking at a specific crude valve, for instance, and I want to get attribute information on that particular valve, I can pull up this basic asset map and click on that particular feature and get some pop-up information. I can also add some other capabilities into a web map like this. So let's say I'm interested in a particular valve and I want to see exactly where that is on the map. I can search for different features within my map and again really reinforce that easy search and discovery of information. I can also search for sections of pipe if I'm interested in looking at where a particular section of pipe is located in relation to what else I'm seeing on the map. Now I can come in here and I have some basic map capabilities, such as looking at my legend as I pan around, and that will update based on what's visible here in the map. I can also toggle on and off the different layers here within my map if I'm interested in seeing specific things or highlighting certain layers over others. And if I need to change my base map for any reason, we could take advantage of the kind of out-of-the-box Esri base maps that are available within these web applications. And I can also control different areas within the map that I want to be able to quickly zoom to. So if I'm interested in going to my gathering area out in southeastern New Mexico and checking on assets and operations out there, I can quickly bookmark that and zoom to it. Or let's say I'm interested in seeing kind of the terminus of this pipeline down here along the coast and the associated storage tanks. Bookmarks make it really easy to jump to certain locations that have been pre-configured. Now, if we want to add some additional, more targeted functionality to this web map, we can take advantage of some of the out-of-the-box widgets as well. So if I want to be able to maybe highlight specific areas on the map and draw certain features over the operational layers that I'm looking at, I have those abilities too. So if I want to draw a polygon, I can change the color, the style of that particular polygon. And if I want to show things like area and distance measurements, I can certainly do that. So if I want to highlight this particular section of the storage tank farm, I can get quick and rough estimates on the area and the distance there. I can also add content to this map. Let's say I am pulling up this map for a specific purpose. Maybe I want to overlay some recent one call information that I recently acquired on top of these operational layers within this map. I can browse that content within my organization and quickly add it to the map. And if I zoom to the location of those one calls, I can see them easily populate and draw there on the map in relation to my other layers. And I can also add content from the web or my local device, my computer, if I need to for any reason. And of course, I can do basic things like take measurements of distances and areas if I need to. And of course, being able to select features within the map and actually take action on some of that information. So let's say I'm interested in seeing all of my one calls in this general area. I can highlight all of those and actually choose what I can do with those selected features. So if I want to export them to a CSV file, I can see that automatically download on my device there. Or if I want to save that as a layer and use that within another map, all those capabilities are built into the system there. And finally, there's always a place for a printed map. So if I need to, for any reason, print out this particular view within my web application to a PDF and then print that PDF out as a paper map, I have those capabilities easily accessible within this web app as well. And again, I want to highlight that a web app like this is completely configurable and can be built to really show anything that you want or really deliver the experience to the end user depending on what that workflow or task is. And so another example of that is a more focused application built for a particular purpose. And in this particular example, we're looking at another configurable web app, but we're dealing with parcels and tracks along a proposed right-of-way. So if I zoom into this proposed right-of-way here, we can see all of our tracks located along this section of pipe. And as agents, within our pipeline organization, work with landowners along this particular right-of-way to secure land, we want to give them the ability to update the status of each of these parcels as it kind of moves through that acquisition process. And so one way we want to expose that capability is through a simple web app like this. So if I'm a worker in the office and I'm receiving maybe signed agreements through the mail from our landowners, I want to be able to quickly search for those particular landowners here on the map and update the status accordingly. So I can see exactly which parcels have been acquired, which parcels are currently negotiating, and maybe which parcels still have action that need to be taken on them. And let's say I've got or I've received a signed agreement and I want to be able to search on a particular landowner. I can, of course, take advantage of the built-in search capabilities and find that particular parcel associated with that landowner. And we can see as I zoom to that particular parcel or tract, I've got a lot of descriptive information I'm also maintaining about that tract and that landowner. So not only the parcel ID and some address information about that landowner and the status of the agreement, but also some contact information. So maybe we have multiple people associated with one particular parcel. We can maintain all of those records and tie that to the parcel as well and be able to go and search and discover that information. So let's say I've received an agreement from this particular landowner and he's ready to sign off and give us the green light. So again, I can come in here and highlight this parcel, and using our built-in editing tools, I can open up our editing capability directly within the web map, and I actually get a dialog box that allows me to go and make changes to this record accordingly. So I can see here I've exposed certain fields or certain attributes within that particular feature that I want to make editable, and I've also locked down some other particular fields and attributes that I don't want the user to be able to change. So again, all of that is completely configurable. So if I need to go in here and update the landowner name or any of the address information, I can easily do that. And of course, if I want to change the status of this agreement negotiating to acquired. I can select from my drop down there, and optionally, maybe I want to add a PDF of the agreement as an attachment. I can browse to that document from my computer here, and then for any reason, if I needed to edit the geometry, I can choose to expose that capability to the end user as well. But let's say we've gone through and updated all of our information for this particular parcel. We can go ahead and save that out. And if I click on it here, we can see that has changed from yellow to green. So really, since we're working with the authoritative parcel information, it's not only going to update in this one particular web app, but anyone who has access to this layer and this data across the platform is going to be able to see those changes in real time. So other people working within the office on their computers will be able to see this change. If we have field workers in the office working with landowners, or field workers in the field working with landowners on agreements, they'll be able to pull that up on their mobile device and see that change as well. So we're permeating this information throughout the organization, so everyone has access to the information, the latest and greatest, and the most accurate and up to date. And so moving along kind of into the monitoring portion, we can again use configurable dashboards and web apps to provide an interactive and real-time view into the status and condition of our assets and our workflows. This allows decision makers to make more informed decisions based on the most accurate and up-to-date information. So here, this time I've got a dashboard pulled up, and we're looking at that same right-of-way information. But instead of updating the status of these parcels, we want to be able to monitor the status of these different right-of-way projects that we're maintaining within our organization. So I see within our South Texas region here, I've got 2 proposed right-of-way projects. I can filter those out on the dashboard here. So I'm interested in my San Angelo project. And as you can see, that updates all of the visual elements on the map based on that filter that I've set. And if I zoom in again to our proposed center line, I can again see all of those parcels and tracks color-coded accordingly. And this again will allow us to kind of track the status of the project. And I've also got indicators over here that I've configured to also show metrics on some of this information. So by tracking the number of parcels along this proposed right-of-way, so all of the parcels and tracks that intersect that line, I'm essentially pulling those out and then tracking them based on the status of their acquisition phase. So I can see exactly how many of my 206 parcels are in the acquired phase, are in the negotiating phase, and maybe ones that we have to go and condemn, or ones that we haven't necessarily started work on yet. So I'm able to get kind of a real-time view into the status of my project. I can also get percentages, so I know 25% of this particular right-of-way by tract count is finished. Now I can take that same information and look at it a little differently. So instead of by the number of tracks, I want to track the status of my right-of-way project by the length of pipe or the length of right-of-way that has actually been acquired. So again, I'm able to divide that up slightly differently and just look at it from a length perspective. And I can again see about 25% of my overall project has been acquired. And this might be helpful if I've got several large tracts or parcels of land over this right-of-way, because obviously if we're dealing with a large tract, maybe it's harder to negotiate, maybe we have more parties involved. So we just have these different metrics that we can configure to look at these projects and track their status. Likewise, I can go over here to my pie chart that I've configured and actually filter out some of this information. So let's say I only want to focus on those parcels that have been acquired. I get an updated list down here of each particular parcel, and I've actually got it sorted on the date that it was most recently updated or changed. So if I click on my first parcel here, we see that same parcel that we were just looking at. We can see exactly the day that it was updated, and this will allow us to have greater insight into our project and maybe who is working on it, which particular agents we need to contact if there's a problem that arises. And so using these dashboards, we have this interactive view into the status of our workflows and of our assets. And taking that and looking at it in kind of another way, we've got another dashboard here configured, but this time we're looking at operational information. So you can see I've got the location of my pipe here, and I'm actually integrating sensor data coming from my pipeline. So whether I've got a SCADA system monitoring information about my pipeline or an array of sensors that's capturing real-time information, I'm able to tap into that data feed and actually bring it here into my map in relation to all my other assets. So I can actually see the flow rates and pressures at each of these meters update every few seconds based on the latest reading I'm getting from my sensor data system. And if I have an issue here, I'm able to see exactly what these colors represent. So if I'm green, it looks like I'm in the clear zone as far as pressure goes. And if I'm red or yellow, maybe the pressure is getting a little too high or a little too low. And I'm able to see that information update real time on the map here. And again, using all of the configurable elements of the dashboard, I can view this information in a lot of different ways. So I've got gauges here that tell me, you know, how the current reading lines up along the range of all of the possible values, and I can see things like flow rates, pressures, and also how each particular asset might coordinate to others within the similar region. So these dashboards allow us to not only monitor, you know, information as it occurs in real time, but also take action on these events as they occur and allow us to make more informed decisions. And I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. But again, kind of moving on through those different areas that Colin highlighted just a minute ago and focusing more on coordination now. The effective operation of any pipeline is heavily reliant on the coordination of the workforce that manages and maintains it. And so here we're looking at a center line in our Austin region and all of the test lead locations along that proposed or that existing center line. And we have a team of field workers that need to perform maintenance inspections at each of these test lead locations. And what we want to do using location intelligence is create an optimized route or set of routes that visits each of these locations. And that's going to allow our field workers to be more efficient in their tasks and possibly visit more locations because we've optimized a set of routes and reduced the amount of drive time and transportation time they're spending. So first, what we want to do is add the field office locations to our map here, since all of the routes are going to start there. And here I'm within ArcGIS Pro, and I've got this content added to a map, but I'm also able to connect to my ArcGIS Enterprise portal where I have a lot of my authoritative data layers stored. So using the interface here within Pro, I can actually search my portal for this field office layer, just using these keywords. I can type that in, and I see my layer pop up there. And actually, I can actually just easily drag and drop this to add it to the map. And there I can see my 2 field locations within my Austin operating area pop up. Now what I want to do is walk through this process of creating these routes and then actually taking them out to the field so my field workers can use them. And to do that, I'm going to use this capability within Pro called tasks. And so tasks are an associated kind of sequential set of steps that I can walk through to accomplish either a automated or repetitive or kind of complex workflow. And you'll see kind of how tasks work as I step through this. But here I've got this optimized work order sequence task, and I can go ahead and open that. And the first step I'm going to open up here and run through is this vehicle routing optimization. And this is actually using one of the tools available within Pro and through the portal. But essentially all I'm going to do is fill out some of the parameters and then run this tool to generate those optimized routes. And so for my orders, those are going to be all of the locations that I'm going to visit. So my test leads, and I'm just pulling these layers in from the map here. For the depots, I'm going to choose all of my field office locations as my starting and end points. And then I'm just going to associate some tabular information about my routes and any break information for my workers throughout the day. And then I'm just going to select a basic date. So I'm going to say, let's run this for today. Maybe it's the beginning of the morning here, and I want to plan out my routes for the upcoming day. Once we set those few parameters, there's obviously a lot of other things that we could set, but we'll just go ahead and set those basic ones for now and run through this tool. And this is actually going to use the underlying routing engine to generate a series of routes here. And it's important to note that within this tool, we can actually incorporate any business logic or any business rules that we want to bring into the analysis. So we're able to accommodate for any objectives or anything that's outlined within the business practice. You can see here as the tool completes, I now have two distinct routes, one starting at our Johnson City field office and the other starting at our corporate office in this region. And each of those routes, again, is going to visit all of these locations. And so what I want to do now is move on to the next step. And what we're going to do here is actually generate a point at each of these test lead locations that has information about that route that we just generated. So I'm just going to accept the defaults for this particular tool. And as you can see within tasks, you can actually embed tools. You can configure them with all the parameters that you need if you just want to run it with the data available to you within the map. So they're very flexible in terms of adapting and augmenting your current workflows. So if we go ahead and run this particular task, we're actually executing a join and doing some stuff on the back end, but our output data set is going to be this new point layer. So if I click one of these points, we can see we've got information about the particular asset, the test lead itself, and then also some information associated with that route. And so our third and final step is to actually send each of these points to our workforce for ArcGIS application and create assignments at each of these locations. And that's going to allow each of our field workers to go out and actually take action on each of these particular assignments throughout the day and be able to track that information as they complete each assignment. And so since we're logged into our portal with our credentials, it's automatically going to ask us which current workforce projects we want to choose from. And so I'm just going to fill out some information here. We're going to associate that layer that we just created with our output. And then for the route name, we're going to choose our route name. We're going to specify which particular workers we want to associate with each route. So for our Johnson City field office route, I'll associate myself, and then we'll choose Matt for our corporate office route. And then for the due date, we are going to specify our depart time. And that's important because, again, this depart time field was actually what was created during that optimization. So this is going to be this is going to provide us the ability to order each of our assignments in the order that was generated in that optimized route. And we can associate a priority with each of these inspections or assignments. And then for a site name, I'm just going to fill out the last remaining options here. And once we've got all of the required parameters, we can go ahead and run this tool. And that's actually executing a custom script on the back end that's taking these points and generating them as assignments within Workforce. And so we'll actually jump over to how that looks now. And I've got Workforce pulled up here. And for those that don't know, Workforce for ArcGIS is a field workforce management and coordination tool. And it consists of two components. So here, what we're looking at is actually the dispatch kind of web view made available through just a web application. And then on the other hand, we have a field worker mobile app that the field workers or the people completing these assignments can actually take out into the field and use to aid them in their tasks. And here we've got a map that displays the location of not only the assignments, but also the field workers along with any of the operational layers we want to configure. So if we want to be able to see where our assignments are in reference to our asset locations, we can add all that information to the map here as well. And then on the left-hand side, we can see a list of each of our assignments. And I can choose how I want to sort these and view these based on a few different options up here at the top. But really, each assignment represents a specific work or task that needs to be done and it's associated with the location and the information needed to do that work. So I can see here all of the assignments that I just created using that script from ArcGIS Pro. So I've got the assignments that have been assigned to myself, and then all of the ones assigned to Matt here as well. And if we click on one of these, we can see descriptive information about that particular assignment. So I can see the location, the priority, the due date, who assigned it. If I want to come in here and actually change who it's assigned to, as the dispatcher, I can do that. And if I optionally wanted to include any notes or attachments for the field worker to view, I can do that as well. And so the dispatcher is kind of in charge of managing all of the assignments and all of the workers associated with each project. And I can also come in here and view the list of all the workers within my project, as well as their locations here on the map. So if I'm interested in seeing where a particular field worker is at a particular point in time, I can use the map to do that. Or if I want to maybe get in contact with a particular field worker, I can call their phone or any contact information I've actually associated to them within Workforce. And we see back on the assignments list here, we've got the same type of assignment, so just a basic test point reading. But within our project, we can actually configure a variety of different assignments that we can then assign out to specific people, determine or based on whatever the task that needs to be done is. And I'll show another example of that here in just a second. But it's important to highlight that there are several ways to get assignments into Workforce. So for instance, I can automate that process like I just did using ArcGIS Pro. I can take points or locations and actually create assignments from them. Or if I've got a work order management system, maybe some enterprise system that is actually maintaining all of the work that needs to be done, I can extract information from that and load it into Workforce here. So it's important to make that distinction that Workforce is not a work order management system, but is more of a coordination and workforce management tool. So the two can definitely work hand in hand and integrate. But what we can do now is not only add in assignments automatically or automate that process, but we can also accomplish the process of adding in one-off assignments and ad hoc assignments as needed. So let's say I zoom back out to all of my assignment locations here. Let's say I've got all of my scheduled activity planned for the day, but throughout the day I might have an alarm set off or a certain alert come up on some of those items that we were just looking at in that dashboard. So if we go back to the dashboard, maybe we want to incorporate some of this real-time information coming in and be able to actually take action on that information. So using Workforce and a combination of other elements within the ArcGIS platform, I can actually do that type of thing. So let's say that I did have a particular alert set off at a meter location along that pipeline, and I want to be able to create an assignment to perform follow-up maintenance on that particular location. One option is to have an email automatically generated based on the notification of that particular alert, which is what I've done here. So I've got a system-generated email that said, hey, there's an issue at this particular location, this particular feature. Here's the nature of the issue, and please take action on it. What I can do is actually go and grab that descriptive information for that feature ID and actually search for it within Workforce. So I see I've got one match here, and I do see it's the same inline meter that I was just looking at over there in the dashboard, and there's a problem at it, so I want to create an assignment for someone to go inspect it. I can do all that all right here directly in Workforce out of the box. So if I create an assignment at that current location, I'm just going to pick an assignment type that has been associated with it, so a maintenance follow-up, and then I'll assign it to myself, and I can choose priority. Since this is an alarm, I want to set it critical with the due date of today. And again, if I want to provide descriptive information, I can go ahead and do that. And so if I create the assignment and go back to our list here, we can see if I sort it by status or priority, then I can see that pop up here. And now what I'm going to do is jump over to my mobile device and show you kind of how all this information would look like from the field here. So 1 second while I switch over. All right, so I've got my phone pulled up here, and this is exactly what the person in the field would see. I've got my Workforce mobile app, and if I open that up, I can see here I've got all of my assignments that I need to do for the day, so all of my scheduled activity. Then I've also got that one assignment that popped up that was critical, kind of ad hoc in response to a certain event. So I can see all of that information update in real time because I'm connected to that same authoritative information. And let's say I want to just focus on my particularly scheduled events for the day. I can see all those on the map here in relation to my current location. I can sort them based on those different things. So since we want to route using that optimized route that was created, I actually want to search or sort by due date. So I know in order which assignments need to be done. And then within Workforce, we have the ability to tag the status of our mobile workers. So if I'm working, I can signify that. If I'm on break, or if I'm done for the day, I can also change that information. So again, that's important because it facilitates that kind of collaboration and communication between the field and the office. And so let's say I'm ready to hit my first assignment for the day. I can click on that assignment. I can again see all the descriptive information associated with that assignment, any notes or attachments that have been included. And once I'm ready to start, I can just click at the bottom there to start the assignment. And again, that's going to notify the dispatcher back in the office that, hey, the field workers actually started work on this assignment to again facilitate that communication and collaboration. And once I'm ready to take action on the assignment, I can see several options. I can integrate with Workforce. So if I want to be able to navigate to the assignment or collect information at the assignment, I can control all that as well. So let's say, starting at the field office, I want to figure out the route to get to my first assignment for the day. I can click on that assignment, launch Navigator, and you can see here the route has been pre-planned and already opened up within our navigation app, Navigator for ArcGIS. And this application allows us to route not only on commercially available roads, but also private roads. So if you've got lease roads or any type of private roads that you want to be able to route to, Navigator will support that and also give you turn-by-turn directions as you navigate that particular route. And so I can see here I've got several different options. I can come and actually see the details for my particular route, so turn-by-turn directions. And once I actually start the route, I will get voice guidance as well. And so as I progress through my route, I will have voice guidance tell me maybe when I need to turn, or if I've arrived at my location, it will actually prompt me to go back into Workforce. And so we don't have to sit here and watch this finish out, but once the route is finished and completed, it's going to ask me to go back into Workforce, but I'm just going to manually do that. And since we're now at the location of the assignment, I want to actually collect information. Since this assignment has to do with a test point reading, I want to capture an inspection or somehow document what that test point is, the current condition at this particular point in time. So to do that, I'm going to use our collector for ArcGIS application. And this is a map-centric application that allows us to not only create and edit features on the map, but also capture detailed attribute and related information to those features. So here I've already got the data populated on the map, but I can see here at this location, I've got one particular test lead, and I can click on that feature and actually view attribute information associated with it. So any descriptive information I might need, or if I'm ready to capture a new record related to that particular feature, I can do that as well. So I'm just going to add an entry to this particular feature. If I need to take a photo of it, make an attachment, I can do that. But I'm just going to fill out some basic information. So this was inspected by me. on this current date and time, and then I can optionally fill out any information that's been configured here for me to capture. So let's say corrective action was taken, yes, and there is no further maintenance required. And so I can, again, configure this to capture whatever information I need. But once I'm ready to submit that information, I can go ahead and click submit. And this will work both online and offline, depending on if we have internet connectivity. If we're online, those updates will be synced immediately. But if we're offline, they'll be stored to our device, and then we can sync them up once we regained connectivity. And so that kind of finishes up the mobile portion of the demo. So, our mobile field workers are able to not only see the work that they need to do for the day, but also take action on that work, navigate to it, capture information. And ultimately, what we want to be able to do is bring that into a centralized place where we can see that information all kind of come together. And so wrapping up here in kind of the operationalized piece, by bringing in all of our business inputs and aligning them with our goals and objectives, we can create this centralized common operating picture that provides actionable information that we can then operationalize. And again, using an operations dashboard, we've configured this in a way to show a lot of the information coming from the various different applications within our ArcGIS platform. And so on the map here, we see all of the locations of our assignments that we just looked at and created and managed in Workforce. We can see the locations of our field workers, in addition to all of our asset and operational layers. I can start to get insights and metrics on some of those assignments. So a breakdown of what's completed versus what's been assigned. I can see exactly which assignments correspond to which locations on the map here. I can see their due dates and any other parameters I want to expose. And from this, I can start to infer how many assignments have been completed, maybe how many are outstanding, which field workers maybe have done more, which have done less, which still have assignments to work on before their day ends. So I'm able to track all that through a dashboard. I can see each of the test points, so those features that we just captured information on, I can see each of those here in a list. And as I click on that, it's going to highlight it in the dashboard, and I'm actually able to see all of the related inspections as well. So as I zoom out, again, since the dashboard is interactive, this information is going to update based on the extent of my map. And if we go to that particular test lead that I was just looking at in Collector, I can see here that it actually captured my recent entry that I just entered in through Collector for ArcGIS. So it is taken the most accurate, up-to-date information and making it available in this common operating picture, so I can see exactly what my field workers are doing, when they're doing it, and if there's any action that I need to take or any decisions I need to be made, I can be confident I'm using the latest and greatest information. And from this, we're able to derive kind of these oversights of our field operations. So how many maintenance visits that resulted in another visit, I want to be able to track that information. Maybe I want to be able to visualize these different metrics on the readings and information I'm capturing in this particular dashboard. But what I'm also able to do is bring in all of these other metrics coming from maybe other business systems or from the data that we're looking at within this dashboard. And from this, I'm able to generate these KPI or these different metric readings based on that particular information. And what I'm really getting at here is that we're able to take this information and operationalize it and really drill down into how we can more efficiently and effectively craft our operational strategies to align with our business and goals and objectives. And using the tools in the dashboards, I can symbolize these in a way that will show if there's an increase or decrease and make that more visually appealing here based on previous values that we're pulling from. So I'm able to see what are my metrics for this year versus last year, maybe this month versus last month, and how are we trending overall as a field operations organization within, or department within our overall organization. And so that concludes the demonstration portion of the webinar, and I'm going to toss it back over to Colin now to talk about some of the next steps. Colin?
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. So when we think about how to get started, I want to circle back around to a word that Scott used there at the end, and that's alignment. And so thinking about the framework that we're basing this off of, visualize, monitor, coordinate, and operationalize, we've shown a lot, a number of different technology solutions, a lot of concepts, but at the end of it, really thinking about getting started, it becomes not just a discussion where we kick off talking about solutions right off the bat, but instead it's an alignment discussion of Esri aligning our technology portfolio against what the business priorities really are for our clients, and thinking about leadership expectations and what are the goals and metrics that we're trying to measure against. And so as a next step then, what we would invite is for folks that want to dig in a little bit deeper into some of these different areas, either contact myself or contact Jeff Allen, who again is our global pipeline practice lead, to shoot us a note. We'd be more than happy to get back in touch, and we could visit by phone, in person, dive in a little bit deeper into some of these concepts in maybe a multifunctional environment around an operations-based presentation that invites operations, executive leadership, as well as ITGIS to the discussion, and even a workshop possibly to think about the alignment around what the priorities are against relevant technology solutions. So tackle next steps any way we can, but start simply in thinking about alignment before we dive in and thinking about solutions, so that we really do get the right kinds of outcomes, and we're demonstrating success, and we're measuring that, and really showing something around an optimized operations picture. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us, and invite questions that anyone may have in the little bit of time that we have remaining. But thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Colin. So I've been kind of monitoring the questions in the background and responded to quite a few of them kind of on the fly. One of the things that lots of folks are asking us is about the presentation itself and the recording. So we will make the presentation available to all the attendees, and the recording of the presentation as well will come out and as a follow-up in the next week or so, once we've got that all put together. So we'll be sending that out to everybody. One of the questions that did come up that I can answer is kind of what's going on behind the scenes here. So for the demos that we were showing today, we were actually sitting on top of the ArcGIS pipeline referencing. That was the tool we were using to create and manage all the pipeline asset data. That's sitting currently in a UPDM data model. That could very well be a pod spatial data model, but it was APR enabled. The demos that we had with the real-time data was coming from a geo event server feed. And then obviously we were using the full suite of mobile tools as well, and the portal / ArcGIS Online for the visualization piece. So if anybody else has any follow-up questions on sort of how we pin this all together and during the demos, feel free to reach out to us as well.
Thanks, Jeff.
I think that's all we've got time for, pretty much at the end of the hour, so we should wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds good. So again, there are email addresses. Please feel free to reach out. Happy to follow up. And again, thank you so much for your time and joining us for this webinar. And I look forward to hearing back from you.